Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing the Rivers and Roads expansion to Era Medieval Age from Eggertspiele. This is an expansion to Era Medieval Age, so you will need the base game to play. And it doesn't alter the play count or time required to play the game. It's still a 1 to 4 player game that plays in 45 to 60 minutes. So we've got some new little cheat sheets here for the new expansion. So this is specifically the content expansion, as you can see here at the top. Another thing that this game adds is scenarios, which use a specific group of buildings. So this is scenario 1. It gives you kind of a list of all the buildings used. And then on the back, we've got one for scenario 2. And then on the back of this one, we have one for scenario 3. These are really helpful. Just to be able to see what the different buildings are at a glance. The one downside is that you only have one set of these, but you can actually go to the website for Eggertspiele and you can just buy a pack of more of these. So literally all this is another 3 sets of these player guides so that you can hand out a set to each player, which is very handy to have. Here is our rule book. Pretty short. Here's all our new buildings that are included. The description of the different scenarios here. So scenarios 1 and 2, scenario 3. They give you a way to play just a random scenario. And then what they call the big game, which is essentially including everything, which for me would probably be my preferred way to play the game. So since this expansion doesn't include some of the base components, this picture here gives you a good understanding of how this game's played if you haven't played the base game. Each player is going to have one of these player boards and it's going to track your different resources here, as well as some other stats, which you can kind of see over the side here. And it's essentially a roll and write, except instead of writing on a sheet of paper, you're going to be placing these 3D figures onto your game board. And you can see that there's little holes here that the pegs in the bottom of these pieces will slot down into. So you're going to be rolling dice on your turn, and it's Yahtzee style dice rolling where you can re-roll your dice. But if you roll dice with any skulls on it, you have to keep those dice. They basically get locked in. And then once all the players have rolled their dice, you'll reveal them and you'll resolve your dice. So dice may give you resources. For instance, you see this one here gives you stone, this one gives you wheat, this one gives you swords. And that's where you're going to track those resources here. And then other dice may allow you to build buildings or gain culture or different effects in the game. So in the box itself, we have, first of all, a new score sheet. So all the buildings that you're going to be placing during the course of the game are going to score you at the end of the game. And this sheet just gives you a really quick reference on how they score and where they score. There's even some empty slots here because you can buy mini expansions on Eggertspiele's website. I believe they have 3 and each one adds 2 different buildings to the game. So that's why you have little blank spots there. But again, all the extra scoring and a very thick pad of score sheets that'll keep you busy for a while. So we have our 3D pieces, but we also have these cards up here at the top. So let's take a look at these real quick. These are a nice little addition, I think. And these affect the base game as well as the expansion here. So in the base game, one of the end triggers for the game is running out of buildings. So you'll see in here, if we take a look at this bag, we've got these very large orange buildings, but there's only 3 of them. So during the course of the game, whenever you run out of buildings, if you've built all 3 of those orange buildings, there would be these little white tabs that you would flip over and they'd have a red X on the back. And when you flip over enough of those tabs, the game would be over. You'd run out of supply for a certain number of buildings. Now, instead, you have these building cards. And these are the base buildings here. And then in the back as well, we're going to have the new buildings. So if we get through all of the base buildings, we get back here, and I believe the armory is a new building. So here's our new buildings. And the good thing about these is, one, it tells you how many of those buildings you're going to use. Just easy reference, because this is going to be on the table while you're playing. It's going to tell you what it takes to build it, the size of it, what it gives you when you have it, the victory points that it's worth. And then when you run out of supply for this building, you simply flip this card over and there's your X instead of having to use the little tabs. So not only is this a quick reference for anybody to kind of just pick up a card off the table so they can see what a specific building does, but it has that extra functionality, and it kind of eliminates the necessity for those little tabs. So I really like this aspect of it. Also, these are really good card stock, these little cards here. So that's nice to see. But here are our new buildings, and we'll look at the 3D pieces as well, obviously, but just so you can see what they add to the game. So our orange buildings that we looked at earlier are trade fairs and allow you to force a trade with another player. So give them the resources you don't need and take the resources that you really want from them. Also gives you culture at the end of the round. So kind of interesting. So here are our new buildings. We have the rivers up here. The way that the rivers work is each player will start with one, and they will put it on their game board at the start of the game. And obviously it doesn't move after that. It's a fixed structure. But there is a new disaster in the game called flooding, which are these tokens. And obviously if flooding happens, it'll spill out from your river, wherever it is on your board, and take over spots and potentially destroy buildings. We have new building here. Let's see what these are. We grabbed our cards real quick. This is a quarry. Another good thing about this game in general, and they do this in the base game as well, is that you just have these kind of easy access things. So you don't even really need to keep the bags, because these buildings are just going to sit in these voids here. But here is our quarry, one of our new buildings, and this one gives you an extra build action each round. We've got our armories here. Armories give you 2 extra swords every round. Swords are a way to essentially take resources from other players or to defend yourself from getting your resources taken. So these little buildings will allow you to kind of not have to roll swords and just let your buildings take care of them. Here's our trade fair, which we already talked about. And these are actually really got a lot of detail on them. So that's cool. Here we have a wharf. A wharf allows you to swap one resource for any other resource, but it has to be built over a river. So obviously you're not going to be using these unless you're using the rivers. And then we have bridges. These are actually joineries. This is another building, kind of hidden in here. Here are our bridges. So if you're playing with rivers and roads, you can put bridges down to cross the rivers. I believe these are chapels. Chapels allow you to reroll dice. And then you have roads. And just like the walls with the base game, they come in different sizes. So you got long roads and then short roads. And we have gates as well. Gates are a way to allow your roads to go through your walls. So you can build roads basically underneath them, like so. Pretty cool. And our last bag is something we already looked at, which is the flood disaster tokens. That's it. That's everything you get in a copy of the Rivers and Roads expansion to Era Medieval Age.